Hello and welcome to Heavy Metal Rex. My name is Wace, and today I wanted to take some time to talk about some of the basic ways that you can mod your 2022 or 2023 and possibly your 2024 WRX. I actually get asked these questions in the comments, on Reddit, on Facebook, on Snapchat, on Instagram, all the time, and I figured what a great way for me to just kind of condense some of this information into a video and hopefully helps you out. Now, I want to let you guys know I have a website, heavymetalrex.com, where I do sell a lot of merch and stickers and hoodies and stuff like that. Also, I have memberships turned on my YouTube page, so if you're looking for a way to support this channel, that's the best way to do it. Now, I get these questions asked all the time because it is relevant, and we have so many new members that are coming and joining our Subaru family. Whether you're new to sports cars or you're just new to Subarus like I was, it is okay to ask these questions, and sometimes it's hard to find a lot of these answers, and which is one of the reasons why I do the Tuner Talk series, because in a way it was not just for you guys, but it was for myself as well, because not only do you learn something, I learned something as well. So what I did was I wrote down a lot of the things that I get asked, and I kind of wanted to go through them. Now, if I'm missing something on this list, definitely head down to the comment section and throw it out there, and I'll try to get that answer for you. So I wanted to start out with tuning. You have some options right now with the WRX. You can tune using a JB4 or you can tune using a Cobb. Now, both have some disadvantages and advantages. The nice thing about Cobb, at least from what I know from the BMW community, is for the most part, it is easier to get away with going to your dealer to get work done if you have JB4 than it is to having a Cobb. On the flip side, Cobb definitely has a considerably more universal support and a lot of tuners that help tune for it, and a couple other things, some knock monitoring and things like that that just aren't present with the JB4. Now on the flip side, JB4 does offer you fast map switching, but if I had to take a guess, your tuner would much rather you have a Cobb than a JB4, but still something to think about. You can find a lot of JB4s for pretty cheap if you just want to try it out. And it does have a couple of maps, and it does have some support on Burger Motorsports website if you do decide to go down that route. Myself, I have tried the JB4, and I eventually switched over to Cobb, so if that tells you anything. Now, next up, I want to talk about intakes. This is I don't want to say this is very controversial because some manufacturers are claiming that you can run their intakes without a tune, and theoretically, yes, you can run them, but there's really no reason to run them. Just think about it this way. If somebody knows, you go to a car meet and somebody wants to race you and they know what a 2022 WRX should be making and you tell them you have an intake, or they see that you have an intake, they're going to assume a certain power level, race you, and if they win, what are they going to do? They're going to go online and they're going to talk about how I beat this WRX, and it's going to be wrong, right? You know, you paid for a part and you're not even going to get the power for it. But if you do get an intake, you have a lot of options. Right now, from all the videos that I've seen so far, I think the ETS makes just a tad bit more power than the other intakes. Your AM, Mishimoto, I think does AW have one? Maybe? I don't know. I have to go back and check that. Obviously, I'm running the Perrin one, which has been great for me so far, but I guess just any one of it's fine. If you can find an intake that's on sale, that's probably the one that I would go with. For the most part, they all do fairly well. Graham did a really awesome video with Subispeed a little bit ago that kind of showcased 3 intakes back to back, and I mean, they were all very good. So just find one that you like, that looks cool, fits your budget, install it, get a tune. Next up, coils and springs. So this is a really interesting one. I don't have a lot of direct experience with changing springs. I've never done that before on any car. Coilovers was the first time I'd done that on this car, and man, let me tell you, I learned a lot. There are some advantages and disadvantages between going both springs. You are going to have to just put them into your OEM shocks. Now, this is only anecdotal. This is no real science goes along with this. Most people that put springs on their OEM shocks have found that they have lost about 5,000 to 10,000 miles of durability off of them, which in the long run, that's actually not that bad. Right? If you're going to be running your springs for 70,000 miles, but you had to change it for 60 instead, or you're running for 50, you change them at 40 instead, that's still really not a bad trade-off for the inexpensiveness of that part. Yes? Where is it? So coilovers are something that you have a lot of options. You do have to pay a little bit more, and they do take a little bit longer to install, but you have the ability to adjust camber. You have the ability to adjust height. So right now, as you can see, I'm actually on my winter wheels, and if I need to raise them, I can just pop the wheels off, raise it a little bit more, and that's it. end of the day, right? So that's really what you're looking at. You know, pay a little bit more now and have more adjustability, or save a little bit money now and just get it installed, and it's kind of like a set it and forget it type of deal. So it really depends on what you're looking to do with the car and what your goals are, and that's really what's going to dictate which of these two parts to go with. My suggestion, save the extra, you know, like $600-700, get the coilovers. You'll probably thank yourself later. Next, I want to talk about exhausts. So this is another question I get asked all the time, because my very first video that I posted with the STI race, this car was 100% stock, and the car was making pop noises. Now, I do use a Rode wireless mic on the bumper, so I was able to catch that. But you can't, it's harder to hear it outside of that microphone because the OEM mufflers are so large. So if the one thing that I could suggest is, if you want to add, I guess there's like 3 levels. If you want, you know, some sounds, get an axle back with no mufflers. You'll get pops, you'll get a good amount of sound out of it, and it'll kind of liven things up. If you want a little bit more sound, get a full catback. Resonated and non-resonated is still something that I'm not 100% sold on, because I have a resonated catback and it still drones. And some people have non-resonated catbacks and they don't drone. So I don't know the exact reason why that is, but take that with whatever you want. The level 3 would be getting a J-pipe. Once I got a J-pipe on this car with the same axleback and catback, it was ridiculous. Now, to be fair, I am running a VA WRX catback, and we did have to do some cutting and some welding and all that, so that could have something to do with it. But your main bet is, if you want a little bit more noise, get rid of the mufflers. Now, if you want some good audio and you don't want it to sound too crazy, the AWE Touring is a really good option, and the Cobb catback is also actually a very good option. They both come with mufflers and a very nice tone. So it's really hard to make the right decision when you're listening to videos online because of the compression. And to me personally, most catbacks kind of sound the same. So unless I had them in front of me all lined up in a row, it's really hard to give a suggestion. But I would still, you know, find something on sale. Find something that looks kind of cool. You know, if you got some, I keep pointing out here like the exhaust is over here, but it's not. Find something that looks cool to you, and that's probably where I would go. But for the most part, they're all very similar. I know that's going to be a hard thing for a lot of people to hear, but look, maybe it's my ears. I don't know. Next, I got wheels and tires. So I am running 265/35, and these are actually 35 offset on these wheels and tires. And on coilovers, depending on how low I rode it, yes. No, when I come inside. Okay, so wheels and tires. I'm running 265/35 Kumho Exa V730s. Now, what the interesting thing about these is, at 265, these are actually they're a little narrower than 255s that come from like the RT660 and the RE71RS, which is really interesting because those tires are a little bit wider at 255. Now, at 265, you will rub depending on how low you go. Most people like to use 35 or 38 offset, which is not these are OEM ones, but like the Cosmis Racing ones that I have. And the nice thing about that is you could put 255s on there and you could low it, and it's like near perfect. 265, you will have to raise it a little bit, or you're gonna have to cut the fenders in the back a little bit. I chose to just raise it. So if you're looking for a slightly wider tire, that's something that you need to think about, especially if you're going with lowering springs, because once you lower it, you don't have an option to adjust it, right? So get the right tire first. 22 offset is gonna be a pokey poke. I think my Vors back in the day were 22s, and they stuck out quite a bit. And I'm kind of glad that I went to 35, because once I had coilovers, I was gonna have a lot of issues with that. Next, I wanna talk about shifting. So the shifting experience is not super great. We do have a cable-driven shift system. Our transmission is cable-driven, so if you're coming from a linkage-based, you're gonna feel it right away. It's a little sloppy, so you have a couple of things to fix that. You've got, you know, the shifter stop, which is really good. Perrin makes a really interesting one that kind of limits the shifter from going too far forward and backwards, along with left and right. So it's a really inexpensive option to try before you move on to something like a shifter plate, which is a lot harder to install, but does reduce the throw for about 35%. Now, the one above that would be a short throw shifter, which is, I think, the hardest to install if you are an amateur like myself. That's one of the reasons I have not done it, is because I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. I probably could do it, but it would take me a good amount of time. But now you're looking at $250, and you know, you could make that shift really, really short. But there's other couple of things that you can install, like a pitch stop under the engine or on the engine itself to kind of like reduce some of the movement of the engine. So a lot of these things combined is what makes the shifting better, but it doesn't make it great. Especially, like I said, if you're coming from another car that already had a good transmission, you're gonna find that this system is a little bit lacking. So those are a few things that you can do for the shifter. Eventually just get an STI swap. That's the best thing, but man, it is a little expensive. Now this is my favorite part because this is a question I guess asked a lot more than probably any other question is top mount versus front mount. Now, before I even start, Subaru on their 24-hour Nürburgring WRX car, they used a top mount for 24 hours. And if they hadn't run into a wall and broken axle, they probably would have won their class. So look, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. The best way that I can describe the difference is if you are doing a lot of drag racing, the stock mount will let you do 5 pulls before it heat sinks. The top mount will let you do 10 pulls. The front mount will let you do a lot more pulls, but there is a cost to it. You know, a nice top mount can be had for like $700-800, maybe even $600 if you find it used, whereas a front mount is gonna be almost $2,000. Now, if you know you're gonna be building your car a lot, just spending the money on the front mount is worth it. Plus, the look alone is worth it, right? Nothing says tuner car like a front mount on a car. It just looks really cool. But the suggestion that I give is get yourself a top mount. You know, a lot of these things, they're not gonna give you a lot of power, but they are gonna give you consistent power. Get an upgraded top mount, use it for a little bit, sell it, take that money, roll it into a front mount. You know, that's probably the best way to go. That's, at least if I hadn't gotten this from Perrin, that's the way that I would have went myself. So really, it's gonna depend on how much racing you actually do. If you're doing like just a shit ton of racing like I do, you know, get something nice, get something thick, get something big, something that's gonna last. If you're really not doing a whole lot of racing, even if you're just like, you know, maybe once or twice a month just rolling on the back roads, you could probably stick with the OEM intercooler. It is actually way bigger than the FA20, so it's not a terrible intercooler. So it's gonna come down to what's in your budget and what you wanna do with the car. The last thing that I have for you is the AOS versus catch can. It's not even AOS versus catch can, it's AOS and catch can. Just get one. It doesn't really matter which one you get. They're both gonna be helpful for your car. If you know anything about turbo engines, they do, some of the oil, these cars actually do have a system where the oil does get recirculated back into the engine, and really, you don't want that. So catch can is really great because you can catch all of the oil and then see on, you know, every oil change how much it was, which we are actually going to take a look at that on Jordan's car here in January when we do an oil change to see, because we installed the Killer Bee catch can system on there. I have the Perrin AOS, which does have some maintenance on it, but considerably less than what a catch can would require. Where in AOS, the job is to actually separate the air and the oil and send it to its specific directions. But there is some foam inserts in there that do require maintenance every few months, but it is much, much less than a catch can. So either way, you should get one. If you have a turbo car of any kind, you should get one. Let these cars live a little bit longer than they need to. This is a great way to do it, add some longevity. So hopefully all this information was useful to you guys. I know I get asked this stuff a lot, and that's actually a good thing because that means we have more and more people joining the community, and the community as a whole is getting stronger and bigger, and the more information we spread, the better the community is as a whole. You know, I myself was a new person in the Subaru community 2 years ago, right? I'm not an expert on all this stuff. You know, with Tuner Talk has been really good for me because I've learned a lot, and just having other prominent figures in the community and to be able to ask them these questions has been really good for me and for you guys because I get to bring this information to you. So hopefully this was informative. Hopefully you'll learn something and you enjoy this video. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. Before you go, if you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hitting that subscribe button costs you guys nothing and it gains me everything. I try to provide as much entertainment and information as possible, whether you're looking at my racing series, Vehicular Acceleration Testing, or you're looking at Tuner Talk, which is actually a great series for newcomers and veterans. My only goal is to try to make the VB community better, and I can't do that without your help. Thank you.